Sweet baby Jesus. Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. So, Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, or just The Last Jedi, is the 8th movie chronologically in the movie franchise. Well, technically it's the 9th official movie. Well, 10th if you include the Clone Wars movie from 2008. And it's a continuation of the new sequel trilogy, and it picks up right where Episode 7, The Force Awakens, left off. Now, before I begin this review, I'm going to point out that this is a spoiler-free review. There are no spoilers. This is just a basic plot summary of things I liked and disliked. Nothing you already don't know, or if you haven't seen it from the trailers, just basic stuff. So, if you're worried about me spoiling the plot, and you haven't seen it already, fear not. I'm just going to be talking about basic stuff. So I'm going to be as vague as possible. That being said, here I go. So, The Last Jedi pretty much starts off with what you expect. Open title crawl and a continuation of The Force Awakens, like I said. Simply put, the First Order is still out there. They've already made a mess of things, and the Resistance, or Rebels as it were, is still trying to fight them and trying to fend them off the best they can with what they have. And things are happening. On the other side, you have Rey, who's still hanging with Luke for most of the time, and it goes about as well as you think it does. On my first seeing of this, because I've only seen it once, I will definitely say this. I definitely like the acting performances that everyone is giving in this movie. I don't think anyone shortchanged it at all. They all did a fantastic job. From Daisy Ridley as Rey to John Boyega as Finn. Oscar Isaac as Poe Dameron. I definitely loved him a lot more in this movie because, first and foremost, he had more to do in this movie. And I didn't really feel that he got a lot in The Force Awakens, but no, he has more of an expanded role. I definitely like what they did with his character. Carrie Fisher. Oh my God. It was a little hard watching Carrie Fisher on screen considering what happened last year. She passed away, unfortunately, around this time. And this is her last performance on screen. So it was a bit hard to watch in hindsight, but she definitely did a damn good job with everything she did in this movie. She was a little bit witty at points, but I've come to expect that. She was funny, but she can also be serious and deliver some well-thought-out lines. Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker. Basically, if you haven't seen it already, Luke is an old man now. He's old man Luke, or Grandpa Luke. He's old, he's grumpy, he's cranky, he's sarcastic. Kind of different from the Luke Skywalker we knew of old. And I definitely like what they did with his character, because he's not quite the same Luke we remember from 30 years ago. So he's basically taking on the role of a mentor/teacher to Rey, if you haven't figured that out already. And you learn things about him in this movie. Laura Dern is in this movie, and she plays Vice Admiral Holdo, who is a resistance leader, and she does a pretty good job of what she has to do too. She has this little bit of rivalry, I would say, with Poe's character, which is funny, or kind of fun, and actually makes for some dramatic moments, but you kind of see where they're going with that. Adam Driver as Kylo Ren, he definitely steps up his performance from the last movie in this, because you learn more about him in this movie too, and he's definitely shaping up to be a great villain, and I like what they're doing with that. And there's an interesting dynamic between him and several other characters in this movie, and I definitely like what they did with that. If I did have a criticism with this movie, it's Finn and Rose's little subplot. Rose is played by Kelly Marie Tran, and a lot of people have said this already, but their subplot does seem to kind of slow the movie down a bit. Simply put, they go from one place to another to go deal with this thing, and they have to go get this thing and get it done quickly before something else happens. And I'd say it's maybe about 20-25 minutes. I personally can't say that I hated it. It didn't really bother me. I mean, I saw what they were doing. I felt parts of it were necessary. But at the same time, I felt that some of it could have been cut out and you'd still have a good movie. But for the most part, it didn't bug me. Although I can see why it bugged other people, so I was just okay with it. Another criticism I have is that some of the characters in this movie don't get a lot of shine at all. Maybe even less shine than they did in The Force Awakens. And I will touch more on that on a spoiler review, but it's a little bit disappointing to see characters get one or two scenes and then be done with it. And that's another thing I liked about this movie I want to talk about. This movie takes Star Wars in completely new directions. They do interesting new things. Because, according to a lot of people, one of their complaints about The Force Awakens was that it was too similar to A New Hope. Well, this one, while it does have some similarities to Empire Strikes Back, it's also its own movie, and it does completely different things. Things you wouldn't expect. Things I didn't even know I liked or wanted. But definitely interesting things that make you want to talk about it for ages, and I will touch more on those in my spoiler review, such as taking the whole mythology of the Force and other characters like the Jedi and pointing out into something new. I definitely appreciated where they went with this, although in some cases I really was a little unsure. I was scratching my head a couple times. And another thing about this movie, it's actually pretty long. I think it's about 2.5 hours long, and it feels like that, but it feels like that for a good reason, because you're thoroughly invested in the movie. And also, in that time, a lot of shit happens. A whole lot of things happen. To say that is an understatement. There's actually several scenes in this movie that had me sitting on the edge of my seat, just like praying and saying, where is this going to go? One scene in particular is, I was in completely stunned silence. As a matter of fact, by the end of the movie, by the time I walked out, I was completely silent. I had nothing to say. Not because it was bad, but I just honestly was unsure of how to feel about that. I didn't even speak on the ride home. I was just sitting there trying to gather my thoughts and think to myself, is that really where they're going to go with Star Wars right now? Is that really how it's going to be from now on? But other scenes just had me in awe. I was trying to hold my applause to myself, but you can't. But yeah, there was a lot happening, and a lot of scenes they completely grabbed my attention, had me invested. To say that Rian Johnson did a good job picking up where Episode 7 left off is an absolute understatement. And I did enjoy myself. I definitely thought this was a good movie. However, I'm not quite sure how I feel about it as a whole, because some things did leave me wondering a bit. So for that reason, I'm going to stave off giving this movie a rating right now. The only way I can give this a decent rating is if I go see it a second time and possibly a third time, because I want to be able to completely accurately assess the rest of the movie and see if my opinion still holds up a few days later, whether I still like or dislike something, or whether I thought more of it, or my feelings hadn't changed at all. So for now, I'm just going to say it was a good movie. Okay, with that being said, have you seen Star Wars The Last Jedi? You probably should have by now, but have you seen it or have you not? Whatever you think, leave me a comment below and tell me how you feel. Also, don't forget to check out my Twitter at AsteroidMike. Don't forget to check out my blog. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Click on the link below. Don't forget to share this video if you want other people to see it. And as always, I will see you around. So until then, this is me saying, peace out.